Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
Yeah. Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence frosters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's the storm that's called you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Screams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay awake. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time.
Okay, that's better. Hi, Mia Wallace is here. Hello. Hello, Eva. Hello, hey, Jude. Hello, my King of Kings. Hello, Busty D. What a day in court it was today. Another day of ineffective assistance of counsel. I don't know what you call it. It's really hard to do this kind of, let's say, how do I put it? Making everyone the enemy, doing incredibly aggressive, hostile crosses on every single Commonwealth witness. Now, I know it probably drums up the free Karen readers, but in this case, I think it's not helping. They failed to score any points. I mean, the lab isn't it's accredited, but the lab, the hospital lab isn't accredited in a certain way. So we found out that Karen Reed's blood alcohol level, she was still drunk that morning, technically. Now, I don't think alcohol really touches the sides. I think she's a habitual drinker I think would she have been less likely to do this crime sober? Maybe. But I don't think alcohol is the key ingredient in this the way other people see it. I see Karen Reed's psychopathy being really the key ingredient in this, and her need for revenge. And if John was she was going to make sure she discarded John fully and exercised her power, and which is the ultimate exercise of power, is to take him off the face of the earth, to kill him. So I don't think it's coming across well. I don't see these giant lands the way, and here we had the introduction today of solo cups and the leaf blower, and boy, does it feel differently now that we had an independent investigation that was done for the free Karen readers. And one of their recommendations was that they should have put had someone watch the area, but I mean, it was such blizzard conditions. They couldn't put up crime scene tape because it would have just blown away. This is the 7th worst storm that Massachusetts has ever seen. So how are they going to put up crime scene tape? And so Jackson is basically trying to put this all to Proctor. Now, there's one interesting element is how is the Commonwealth going to deal with Proctor? Now, we've heard the defense basically try to tie every witness to Michael Proctor somehow, or the Alberts, or something shadowy. And curiously, we haven't seen the Brian Albert testify yet. There's a real intelligence behind the order of these witnesses. And you understand it more, the order. It's not the usual order. So we sort of went chronologically last time. This time we're kind of we're weaving in and out of time, but there's always a reason why one witness comes before the other, to put the other witness in context. It's really, Hank Brennan thought hard and long about how he was going to present these witnesses. So instead of Michael Proctor or Buchanan, we have Lieutenant Paul Gallagher today talking about the crime scene, and thought it was, again, very interesting that he evoked emotion again from Paul Gallagher. He said, well, why did you bring a pop-up tent? And he said, you brought that from home? He says, yes, I brought my own tent to the crime scene because should a man be found deceased, I wanted, out of respect for his body, to be covered. And really, you heard Hank Brennan ask the questions to elicit emotion from the jury and also sympathetic feelings towards Lieutenant Gallagher. It's what I predicted. There's a lot more emotion in this case than the last time, and maybe more what you would call manipulation of the jury, a little bit. I mean, not all manipulation is bad, but to show these people as humans, so you can't villainize every single police officer. But I don't know how they're going to deal with Proctor. Are they going to make the defense call Proctor as their witness? Looks like it. I thought Buchanan was brilliant. I thought Proctor was pretty good. So on the stand last time, and certainly after being fired by the police department, he might be more forthcoming. Talked about this last time. I haven't found it very helpful for Jen McCabe to only talk in glowing terms of Karen Reed. Now, that's obviously how they felt at the time, but we don't get any kind of testimony like, wow, I really thought that she was a great person, but I was fooled by her mask. Now I see what a devious, evil, calculating person she is, so my opinion has changed. We don't hear any of that. Why not? I mean, you could hear the way that Jennifer McCabe was calling Karen Reed to Alan Jackson, your client, Miss Reed, putting a lot of distancing language, but why not? The only hint of it we've gotten is from Peggy O'Keefe. Just in the way that she said, what's she doing here? And the way she said, it's more of a see if I can get it right, more of a emphasis on the she. What's she doing here? Oh, she's in psych. She's getting psych evaluated. That crazy bee. That's the translation of Peggy O'Keefe's, what she meant. It seems like that's what she meant. But if you weren't tuning in today, I've gotten more people saying that this story of William Reed is true, screaming at Alan Jackson, saying, you told me you were going to bring Jen McCabe to your knees like you promised me you would. and that he had to be brought in and screamed at, Karen Reed's family, in front of the judge and her lawyers. I don't know. The O'Keefes, I believe, were also met in chambers with the judge separately, getting more reports that that's a true thing that happened. So it seems like everybody is disappointed that they're not really landing any of these punches. And it's obvious to me that they're not. So what does this mean? You know, this could mean Karen Reed, we could still go to a hung jury. I'm not making any predictions. I'm just telling you how I'm seeing the trial going. The trial could go perfectly and we could still get a hung jury if there's turtle riders on it. So to me, it's going very well for the Commonwealth. Of course, this is the Commonwealth's case. We haven't seen what the defense has. Maybe they'll get up there and blow it out of the water, but I doubt it. And there was one thing I wanted to talk about, just one moment. But before I do, I want to thank some people for becoming Patreon members. Eileen, Sandra Loves Gatsby, Erin, aka Kitty's 1993, Cici, Guteriez, and Anna Quinn. Also want to thank Tammy Shepard for the Venmo, Carol Holderman, Fada Setzer for the Buy Me a Coffee, Amy Gill, M. Skate, Jackie Joe, Leanne, and Marie Horton. Thank you very much. I really appreciate these. This is all listener supported, so I really appreciate you supporting the stream. If you want to support this channel, the links are in the description of this episode. So here is Alan Jackson at one point, and so he's basically talking about asking Lieutenant Gallagher, is the scene corrupted? So these solo cups, was he worried about corruption or contamination of the evidence? And this was a perfect example of an epic fail in cross-examination and why lawyers are taught to only ask questions that they know the answer to ask yes or no questions, to manage the witnesses, to not let the witnesses go off into areas that could be damaging for their clients. Hey, Heisenberg, I can't wait to see HB bombshell car data evidence. I can't either. Hank Brennan's car. It's been promised. Is it going to happen? And there was mentioning of Karen Reed's door opening. This is what I've been hearing talk about, Karen Reed's door opening, meaning that she got out of the car and thought that he didn't look mortally wounded, possibly, or poked her head out the car door. Obviously, if you go back to that interview where she said he didn't look mortally wounded, he said, that's when you dropped him off. And she says, yes. I mean, Alan Jackson can try as hard as he can to make that about the next morning and not when she dropped him off and hit him with her car going 24, almost 24 miles an hour in reverse. Her foot nearly 75% down on the gas pedal with her infotainment system beeping and flashing at her. Her wheel turns right in before her car has an event, meaning she turned her car into John O'Keefe. And that's going to show where she was. The big mystery is, did she visit John O'Keefe's body before she went to Jennifer McCabe's? Looks like that might be a red herring. I don't know. We'll see. Looks like it's going to show us everywhere it is. So thanks, Robert Chinnery, for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Right. So let's get into Alan Jackson's epic fail. This was the biggest fail, and it personified, or it was emblematic. That's a better way to put it. Personified. Emblematic of just the way his crosses have been going. This is where he asks about corrupting DNA with this lieutenant who had the brilliant idea of bringing leaf blowers on the scene. So this is quite a different cross now that we know that these independent 5 stones that did kind of inaccurate, did a pretty inaccurate reporting. Their times were all off, but they said it's ingenious that they used leaf blowers. We thought there might be a problem with it, but it was a great way to preserve evidence and preserve the scene. And how else what difference would it make if they carried it in something else? It sure would have looked nicer, but we all knew it was John O'Keefe's blood. This is a new package of solo cups. And there wasn't any contamination of DNA, but here's where he talks about DNA. Take a listen.
If you consider the weight and balance in terms of getting that material back to Kennedy in good condition, sanitary condition.
So a criminalist could extract a proper DNA sample.
What would happen, for instance, if that blood material, I don't know, were contaminated?
Contaminated how?
You tell me. You're the professional.
So DNA.
That's a terrible question. So I have this a little bit sped up. I'm going to actually move it to a little bit more normal speed. It's a terrible question. You tell me how it could be contaminated. So let me tell you all the ways that it could be contaminated and show you how unlikely it was that any of the evidence at the scene was contaminated. What a terrible, and if you were listening with me, I wrote in the chat, what a massive F up. Absolutely terrible on Alan Jackson's part. It's all leading up to this could be contaminated. It was sloppily done. You can't trust any of this evidence. It's a really important point for the defense. And what an epic way to blow it.
DNA is pretty hardy, pretty forensically stable. The only things that are going to harm it are radiation, ultraviolet light, harsh chemicals such as bleach. That's not present here. I wasn't. Then you would have 2 sets of DNA when it's tested, which would benefit you.
Well, depends on whose DNA it is.
That's correct. That's correct.
Right. What a great way to show that it could have gotten contaminated with someone else's DNA. And that would have benefited you. This is something that the Innocence Project has been capitalizing on years. DNA that's left at the scene, DNA that's inadvertently picked up, incomplete DNA. They've been getting multi-million-dollar payouts on this kind of stuff forever since its inception, in the 1990s. But here, what a great way to show a multi-person conspiracy theory than other people's DNA picked up. Or even inadvertently picked up from, say, like someone in the Solo Cup factory. Not every piece of DNA is going to have to deal with the crime scene. We didn't find any of that. What a way to magnify that. And say, well, it couldn't have been destroyed because there wasn't, let's listen to it again. There wasn't, he said some kind of like ultraviolet light or some kind of, let's listen one more time. He says bleach and some kind of radioactive material. Hold on, let's listen again.
Contaminated how?
You tell me. You're the professional.
So DNA is pretty hardy, pretty forensically stable. The only things that are going to harm it are radiation, ultraviolet light, harsh chemicals such as bleach. That's not present here. I wasn't. Then you would have 2 sets of DNA when it's tested, which would benefit you.
Well, depends on whose DNA it is.
That's correct. That's correct.
But what a way to show that you found no one's else DNA, not even incomplete DNA.
Yes.
This is another thing that happened continually all through the day today and has been a pattern with the defense, asking for multiple sidebars. So they're leaning on the judge to take out as much evidence as possible because they know it's not going well. And they're not developing anything as far as third party and cross. So that may not stop them. It didn't stop them in the opening from opening. They weren't allowed to mention third party, but they did a pretty good job of talking about third party in the opening as they did last time. But they're really leaning on this very defense-friendly judge. It's the nicest way I can put it. So they know it's not going well. Nothing's landing.
want to stay on this for a second. So obviously, there's a reason why blood swabs or biological swabs are handled with such care. For instance, the DNA analyst is going to put on gloves.
Correct.
Oftentimes, they're going to put on a mask.
I don't know about that.
Oftentimes, they put on goggles. Right?
It depends what they're testing.
Right.
Yeah.
But in order to go out and collect something, you'll see.
Right. He's like, often they put on a full hazmat suit, don't they? That's what they're testing. He wants to tell the jury that DNA and other forensic evidence is so easily corrupted. And Lieutenant Gallagher was excellent witness for the Commonwealth. He was like, yeah, it depends what they're testing. They're not in a full boy in the bubble machine when they're testing. Might put on gloves so they don't get their own DNA in it, but that didn't happen here. Wow. This is a crazy moment. Jen B, thanks so much for the super sticker. I appreciate it.
CSI, crime scene investigators, in full body suits when they walk into a crime scene.
Yeah, you can.
Because you don't want to contaminate the scene with your own hair on your arm or an eyelash falling into a blood stain, correct?
That is correct.
Right. So there are protocols. I mean, you said just a second ago, Gallagher, well, it's DNA, unless somebody pours bleach.
Right. He said, oh, it's DNA unless someone pours bleach in it. Now he's trying to recover from this. He's trying to dig his way out. They usually wear hazmat suits. Yeah, that's when in the crime scene is not a nor'easter. It's like, how are you going to, I mean, they're really going to say people went out in a nor'easter to plan evidence against Karen Reed. Why? Because no one liked the college professor. They're all covering up for an officer. They couldn't like frame the person in town who's always getting in trouble driving drunk. They couldn't frame someone else. They had to frame Karen Reed. Oh, it's so ridiculous. Heisenberg says car data against her will mean winter is coming. I hope so. It's not going well now. I mean, every day it just gets quieter and quieter on Free Karen Reed. I mean, they can say that if there is a Free Karen Reader on the jury or a bunch of them, none of this will matter. How well it's presented, because they made up their mind in the beginning. But if you have an open-minded, fair-minded jury, not going well. Not going well for them. And I also get the feeling that, and this is something that I've gotten for months and months now, that Alan Jackson and David Yannetti are just not preparing. They're handing things off to Alessi and Little, and they're just not really motivated. Thrill is gone.
Bleach in it, they're pretty much golden, right? That's not quite the fact.
And that's not quite what I said.
That's not quite what you said. If you were suggesting that it's hardy enough, that it doesn't really matter.
No.
It's contaminated or not. If there's multiple people's DNA, just benefits everybody.
No, I simply asked what you meant by contamination.
Okay. So it could be contaminated with debris, is that right?
Sure, it can.
It could be contaminated with other people's DNA, is that right?
It can.
It could be contaminated with foreign items, foreign either aerosols or somebody's spittle when they're talking, correct?
Sure.
So are they going to say that this is all contaminated with John O'Keefe's own DNA? Is that what he's going at? I just found this incredibly ineffective. Did anyone else find this like the most ineffective cross ever in the history of the world? Maybe put it with Jennifer McCabe. And Hank Brennan's redirects have been really brief and really effective.
Hypothetically.
Right. Of course, these solo cups didn't have lids on them, right?
They did not.
They were open.
Yes.
You didn't photograph where you picked up the samples.
No.
You didn't document where you picked up the samples.
Right, but what else was found? Are they saying that all of these samples were were contaminated with John O'Keefe's DNA and it was someone else's blood? Because he's already said how DNA can be destroyed, and none of those issues were a factor here. So it's out for the jury. So why is he still pushing it?
So if the samples were in 6, how many solo cups were there?
6.
6 solo cups. We don't know as we sit here where each of those solo cups contents came from specifically, do we?
Specifically, no.
Okay. Then those solo cups with no lids were placed into a bag, right?
That's correct.
You said on direct examination that this was a brown paper bag, right?
It is. Stop and Shop, I believe.
And you said.
See? So he's getting the first punch in. So if you want to talk about a grocery bag, and people just made great fun of this. And I was like, what difference does it make how it's transported? If it's a Louis Vuitton bag, if it's a Shop and Stop bag, there's no contamination. All these are great questions when there's someone else's DNA there. But he already opened the door to saying what he hoped to say is, oh, yes, it could get contaminated. We could lose DNA. He's hoping that the other conspirators' DNA just somehow got contaminated, lost, corrupted. It's not helpful to this line of cross.
Said that Stop and Shop bag is, other than having the words Stop and Shop on it versus evidence on it, basically the one and the same thing.
Same dimensions, made out of the same materials, yes.
Right. But with an evidence bag, you know exactly where it came from and who's handled it.
Not necessarily.
Comes from a manufacturer whose job it is to secure those bags so that they are not mishandled, so they can have some sort of bona fides that they're clean and ready to.
Substantiated rumor, unless we have. Oh, whoa. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, at least I know where I am a little bit. My apologies.
The price.
Oh, no. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I'm sorry, we're speaking over each other.
I apologize.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gallagher, you gotta wait.
Yep.
There's a reason. My point is, there's a reason, right?
Yes.
That evidence bags are more expensive because there is a way they're manufactured and they're taken care of, and Canton PD is willing to pay that extra price, like every other law enforcement agency, because of that. Correct?
Yeah, it would be preferable. They're working in a nor'easter. They had one shot to get this evidence, and if they hadn't gotten it, they would have said, "Well, we didn't have the proper bags. You didn't have." Can you imagine? They didn't have the proper bags. They didn't collect any DNA at the scene. Can you hear the free Karen readers and the press jumping on it? I mean, everyone is a Monday morning quarterback unless you're at the scene in a blizzard. It's easy to criticize. Falk says, thanks so much. This channel is so refreshing, Roberta. Thank you. Thank you for listening. But I mean, I just thought this was a perfect example of getting nowhere.
So they're not quite the same, are they?
No.
Yeah, but that's a great criticism to make when there's been some cost, when there's some provable cost to, there's something missing, there's something unexplained that's been found. But when there isn't, it's just, oh, it would have been better to have the bags than not. It's just nothing.
Those solo cups were placed in the evidence bag.
I mean, this just feels like defense nitpicky 101. And this is the same kind of cross that Yannetti did, although more effective than this. Alan Jackson has been totally, just seems like a neutered version of what we saw in the first trial. So Yannetti did a cross that's just the standard defense. You weren't accredited in the hospital that's now closed, wasn't accredited in this and that, so we can't trust. Karen Reed's blood alcohol level, but there she is on right before this. We've already heard the clips of her saying that she was buzzed. She was not as clear as she would have been if she hadn't been drinking, that she drank multiple drinks, but she counts 2 drinks as one, sounding like a person with an alcohol problem.
Bag uncovered.
Yes,
The evidence bag was then placed in Sergeant Lank's vehicle.
it was closed and Sergeant Lang transported it to his vehicle. Yes,
Okay. When you say closed, you mean the top of it was rolled up?
Correct.
Or folded over?
correct.
It wasn't forensically sealed.
Not at that time, no.
There was no evidence tape that went on it.
Not at that time, no.
Matter of fact, the cups were still open and could slosh around.
Uh,
Assume they melted.
yes,
There's liquid blood and liquid water, like
that's correct.
snow.
That's correct.
They could slosh around, but did they? It's one thing if you spilled the whole thing and you have like a wet bag, like a bag with evidence all over it, but they didn't. Yeah, so that's that. I mean, I just wanted to show you the way that went. I mean, you get a pretty good picture of the way it went. Alan Jackson. And then you get the feeling also that Alan Jackson is up there continuing to talk because he just can't sit down. He's just trying to make point after point. He got so frustrated, he started clapping his hands with Jennifer McCabe, just stomping his feet like a tantrum. I mean, it had two reasons why he clapped his hands. So the jury would try to remember his points and wake them up. And 2, just trying to look like he's outraged at Jennifer McCabe just by his attitude towards her. And this was something I noticed. He called her Miss McCabe. She's Mrs. McCabe. Just as this little disrespect, a little slight. I'm surprised she didn't correct him, but she was brilliant. And there's one other thing I want to show you before, speaking of Jennifer McCabe, what Hank Brennan got in on her. This is another brilliant moment by Hank Brennan. But before I get into that, I just want to show you one other thing. I showed you this before this morning. But here is Alan Jackson as Jennifer McCabe walks off the what do you call it? For testifying, the walks off the stand. Oh my Lord. That was a brain bubble. Okay, here we go. Check out Alan Jackson watching Jennifer McCabe through the courtroom. She's leaving with a smile on her face, and his eyes, he's trying to follow her with his eyes. And he turns his head. Opportunities missed, lost. And he just puts his head down. He did not destroy her. She walked off the stand defiant. That was great. Great little moment. Also, another thing that Hank Brennan did so well is humanize her and show just, she also elicited a lot of testimony about her grief, her trauma from that day. What's never answered is why Jennifer McCabe and Kerry Roberts were ever involved. Why? And I'll ask it again. I've said it before and I'll ask it again. Why did Karen Reed have to involve Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts? And I'll answer it for you, because she had to mix it all up. Without those other personalities, there's no one to blame but herself. So it's how she did the crime and how she did the cover up are very similar. So she did the crime by proxy using her car. So she has a little plausible deniability. Oh, I was so drunk, I didn't mean to hit him. When all the evidence shows that she did mean to hit him. Her foot's 75% down on the gas pedal. Her infotainment system is beeping and flashing at her, telling her she's going to hit something. She's turning her wheel into John O'Keefe right before she hits him. It's really hard to say you didn't mean to. And she knew. And also there's the psychic Karen Reed that knew that John O'Keefe had been hit by her, clipped by her, was left to die. Something terrible had happened to him, and she knew exactly where he was. She also knew he was dead before anyone else. I mean, either she's a psychic or she was very aware of what she did. And instead of calling 911, which is what you usually do if it's an accident, she wanted him to suffer. She was fully okay with the consequences of her actions. She had to know that John O'Keefe, who never wore a coat, could die out there, and she was okay with it. It was more important to her to call him 53 times and tell him she hated him. So here's a interesting part. That Brennan showed Jennifer McCabe's very state of mind with these text messages.
You were read or shown certain text messages between you and some of your family.
Yes.
Was that a complete listing of the text messages in order that were on your phone?
I had a lot of text messages with them on my phone, yes.
Were some missing from what you were shown?
I'm not sure.
Okay. You were read or shown.
Here's some that weren't read.
Does this reflect your state of mind?
Wait, hold on. Let me go back.
That day?
Yeah. I'll allow it. Objections noted. Next question.
You need to approach on this particular text.
Come to sideline.
You were read or shown.
That's the defense trying to get it out.
Does this reflect your state of mind that day? Does this reflect your state of mind that day?
Yeah.
Your Honor, subject to redactions, I would seek to introduce all of Ms. McCabe's text messages.
So we'll deal with that later. Is there an objection?
There is.
We'll deal with that later.
So the defense wants all of them out. All of them out. Why? Because it humanizes Jennifer McCabe. And people are just watching this trial. I've seen multiple messages saying, I'm supposed to hate Jen McCabe, but I really kind of like her. What's to hate? I don't get it. How is she so hateable? So I thought it was really effective. Great way to humanize Jennifer McCabe. And I didn't think they did a very good job with the rest of the witnesses, either today. There's Katie McLaughlin's always been a great witness. She didn't have any, she said again was elicited testimony. Alan Jackson elicited the same kind of testimony from firefighter McLaughlin that he did Jennifer McCabe. I'll never forget that Karen Reed said, I hit him. Actually, she heard it 4 times, not 3. Even worse. So she's sure she heard it. They didn't really get that fuzzy memory testimony that they wanted to. Funny Bunny says, that morning, Carrie took Karen Reed back to Fairview the opposite way than Karen Reed went the night before, and yet Karen Reed still knew where John O'Keefe was. Good point. Good point. Yeah, right where he was. I mean, it was very damning. Like, and she said she was anticipating finding him on the side of the road. Why? Why? Why would you anticipate if you didn't know where he was? Where Carrie Roberts is not helping out is she's giving interviews to Matt Gutman, who's such a free Karen reader, basically, essentially, saying that Karen Reed was so upset because she didn't know where her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, was. She knew where he was. Had they not figured out that Karen Reed was playing them that morning? They were the mark, and Karen Reed was playing them. She knew exactly where he was. They didn't think anything when she didn't look in the house. She didn't look in the home for him. They didn't think anything when she didn't take off her shoes twice. I mean, they didn't know it the first time, but the second time when they're all taking off their boots and Karen Reed's running right in, and the rule in John O'Keefe's house is to take off your shoes. They didn't think anything. They didn't think anything when she's screaming into their ears, Carrie, Carrie, Jen, all the way to the scene, just to put them in a fear state of mind and confuse them. And she'd really studied them. She'd profiled them. She knew these were John O'Keefe's friends, not hers. And she was happy to throw them into the mix so that she'd have some kind of other person to point the finger at. Otherwise, if it's Karen Reed calling 911, Karen Reed's taillight pieces all over the scene, where's the alibi? Instead, she makes Carrie and Jen call 911, especially Jen McCabe call 911. Carrie calls for emergency, calls the hospitals. Karen Reed does nothing that morning. So the jury could not have missed that the most infuriating part of his cross was when he was blaming Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts of not doing enough to save John O'Keefe and turning her back on John O'Keefe when he went on the stretcher. You know who didn't do anything and didn't help and was a total nuisance on the scene? Karen Reed, screaming, carrying on, doing everything but helping John O'Keefe. So it's really hard when they say that Carrie Roberts, didn't help. Jen McCabe didn't help. You know who didn't help? Karen Reed. Or that she didn't know. And that they're inconsistent with their story. The most inconsistent person still remains Karen Reed. And I think she's going to have another bad day in court tomorrow. So that is my wrap up. I'm going to keep it short and sweet for today. But that is my wrap up. It is not going well for Karen Reed. I look at this case, the way I looked at this case is there's what's happening in court and there's the innocence fraud campaign. So I think that what happens in court may have nothing to do with the outcome of this case. But for those that see, those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, it is very damning for Karen Reed. And there is a record, undisputable record of her guilt. And the defense is looking just incredibly weak. And it doesn't seem like there's the kind of, I don't know, it just feels like, it's just like the image I get is like of a air going out of a balloon. They just seem to be limping into the finish line. But let's see, the momentum can change. When it comes time for the defense, momentum may change. Artworks says, does it seem to anyone else that Hank's theatrics aren't working this time? To me, his questioning is coming across flat and is failing. No, I don't see it that way. I see the defense failing. I mean, you'd have to give me an example of where I didn't find him particularly theatrical. He is certainly more emotional in his approach. I mean, having Karen Read, it's hard to argue with the evidence in this case because Karen Read, after everyone who testifies, Karen Read basically reiterates what they just said. Oh, Allison, so nice to see you. Allison Gavani from My Father's Alibi channel. Check it out. Gifted 5 memberships. They will be handed out at random. Got to do something for the members only soon. So that's what I have for today. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. and we can see what's in store tomorrow. They may turn it all around tomorrow. Who knows? But right now, the Commonwealth, obviously it's their case. They have an advantage. Defense hasn't presented their case. But we'll see what they have in store tomorrow. Hey, Funny Bunny. You just met AJ. Oh, Alan Jackson. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I think he's failing and he knows it. Again, we go back to, and you know who else knows it is Karen Read's father. He was screaming at AJ saying, you told me this is the rumor. Certainly hasn't been verified by anyone on the Commonwealth side or the defense side, but these are the reports I'm getting from multiple people that Daddy Read, William Read, was screaming at Alan Jackson saying, you promised you'd bring Jen McCabe to her knees, and they're being very rude to the O'Keeffes. They're being sore losers. It's not going their way and they're acting out. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Join me at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Please support the channel. Links are in the description of this episode. You can support the channel on Patreon, get access to content you won't get anywhere else. Also, Venmo is a great way to support the channel. Buy me a coffee. And I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you guys at 9 a.m. The clips are pure gold. Aren't they pure gold, Heisenberg? They're great. I can't wait for the next clips. And there's such a great way also for the press to report on this trial. They can't miss those clips. They may miss a lot of long, arduous testimony, but they can't miss those clips of Karen Read's own words that we haven't heard before. So I look forward to the next clip, the next self-incriminating and contradictory clip of Karen Read. Hopefully we'll get a new one tomorrow. I'll see you all at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. snowing, I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard, now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin, making money, truth is my second victim.